Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. Thanks for being here. I got a big guest for you today, Ton Liu, the author of The Ponzi Factor. We'll be getting to Ton in a few moments. I wanted to set this up for you. Please take a moment to share this, to let people know, and click thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't already. By the way, all the super chat donations will go to mutual aid organizations in various cities around the U.S. All the proceeds from those will be going to mutual aid. But I wanted to set up this story that we're going to bring in Ton Liu in a moment for. It has lit up the interwebs about a specific stock that everyone is talking about. You might have heard of GameStop. GameStop apparently not doing great right now in the world because it turns out that during a pandemic, very few people want to go and stand around in a tiny cubicle store and breathe on each other, picking out games that they could pick out over their computer and not need to go breathe on each other. So GameStop was barely hanging in there. And anyway, here is what has happened recently. The GameStop stock has gone nuts. It's and the subtitle of this is how a bunch of Redditors made GameStop stock soar, much to the chagrin of hedge funds attempting to short it. And I'll read a little bit of this. There's been a boom in day trading and individual investing over the past several months, activity that's often taking place or being discussed on platforms such as Reddit or Robinhood. And I'm going to skip down. When it comes to the GameStop saga, an army of traders on the Reddit forum Wall Street Bets helped drive a meteoric rise in GameStop's stock price. And of course, it's got to be a fucking tongue twister. GameStop stock price in recent days, forcing it to halt trading multiple times, causing a major headache for the short sellers betting against it and banking on the stock falling. It's a captivating David versus Goliath, and right now, for at least, David is winning. Let's see. There's been a lot of hand-wringing about the day trading trend and this new crop of investors playing the markets and blah, 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 blah. So here's the thing. There is something that I kind of like about this, which is this is kind of small-time investors fucking over hedge funds, which is pretty hilarious to watch that go down. But to me, this is highlighting something which is not being talked about in most of these articles, most of this mainstream media coverage, which is Wall Street is essentially a Ponzi scheme. It is it's not just a casino. It's a casino where idiots, very rich idiots, are playing with people's lives. And we're not addressing the goddamn elephant in the room that it is a Ponzi scheme. And to me, this kind of highlights it in a way, because this doesn't have to do with the GameStop stock soaring, doesn't have to do with whether it's doing well. It doesn't have to do with whether they're selling a lot of products, whether a lot of people are going, yes, I would like to go into a small cubicle and cough on people while I pick out the new Halo. It's very, very little discussion of whether GameStop is helping people's lives or people are getting a lot of benefit out of GameStop, and that's why the stock is doing well. None of that matters. None of that is even in this discussion. This just has to do with inflating the stock by a bunch of people fucking having a little fun, and some of them making a lot of money, but screwing over this hedge fund, which was shorting GameStop, basically saying, hey, in the future, GameStop stock is going to go down even more, and so we're going to put a bet on their stock going down even more. And now, because of all these people making the stock go up, this hedge fund and maybe some others, but one particular one is getting completely fucked over, which again, I like that part. Anytime you get to fuck over hedge funds, I'm all for it. You know, if you just want to take a dump on their doorstep, I'm down with that too. I don't think that's going to prove much about the stock market, but you're welcome to it. But anyway, so that is the story that's going on. And before we bring in Ton Liu here, I want to show that even Elizabeth Warren has chimed in on this. Let's see here. Sharing the wrong one with you. All right, here we go. Elizabeth Warren has said, let's see, let's make that bigger. Elizabeth Warren has said, with stocks soaring while millions are out of work and struggling to pay bills, it's not news that the stock market doesn't reflect our actual economy. And she's right about that, but she's wrong about a lot of other things. She continues on. For years, the same hedge funds, private equity firms, and wealthy investors dismayed by the GameStop trades have treated the stock market like their own personal casino while everyone else pays the price. It's long past time for the SEC and other financial regulators to wake up and do their jobs. And with a new administration and Democrats running Congress, I intend to make sure they do. Oh, Elizabeth Warren putting the smack down. Here's the thing. Elizabeth Warren is ignoring, and this might go a little bit afield of what Tan Lu's book says, but this system is putting regulations on this system it's putting chains on a fucking monster. It's putting chains on a dragon. Why is it we have a system that exploits people to begin with? Why is it we have a system that enriches a tiny number of individuals, and then we try and run around as the average citizens trying to put the restrictions on this monster that is eating our society alive, that is destroying the environment, that is destroying the world? Why is that a rational system to have? So when Elizabeth Warren says we need to put these stipulations, these regulations on things, she's saying, don't worry, we can still have this monster that eats everything and shits out a fucked up existence. We can still have that monster. We're just going to put a couple more leashes on it, a couple more tethers. You know, we're like people walking around with their kids on a leash. We're going to stick some of those around its ankles, and then all will be well. And the difference between the so-called, left wing in our Congress and the so-called right wing is the right wing says, don't put that little leash around the toenail of the dragon. And the left wing says, no, we need another leash on the toenail of the dragon. And no one's saying, why do we have a fucking dragon? Why do we have a monster running around destroying people's lives? Should we ask that question? But anyway, I want to back off from that broader view and get into what exactly is going on with this, with GameStop and what it says about Wall Street. And for that, I'm going to bring in Tan Lu, who first let me show you, might as well show you a photo of his book here. His book is called The Ponzi Factor. I think it's excellent, and it makes a lot of great points that a lot of people are not willing to make about our system, Wall Street, the stock exchange, and you can grab a copy at theponzifactor.com. I believe he said it's also there's a free PDF if you don't have the few bucks for the paper copy. But I highly recommend you plunk down a couple of bucks and get the paper copy. But anyway, let's bring in Tan Lu.
Hi, Lee.
Hey, Tan, how you doing?
Doing great. Yourself?
Yeah, doing all right. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Totally.
Yeah. So this, I feel like this story has highlighted a lot of what you've been screaming from the hills for a while now. But in kind of a unique way. I realize there's a lot going on probably to explain, but I'm going to let you take it away and
Sure.
and so explain what you see as going on here with GameStop.
Sure. So over the past 6 months, we've watched the stock market simply explode to new highs, and while the economy is essentially collapsing. And people have asked me, does this hurt my thesis, my book, and what I presented in the fact that the stock market is a Ponzi scheme? I said, absolutely not. It actually enhances it. Look, there are two scenarios when a Ponzi scheme becomes very evident. One, when it collapses completely, Or two, it just ascends with absolutely no logic or value or stoppage to it. And over the past 6 months, I watched CNBC and all these people experts on Bloomberg or whatever they call it. They're experts, right? They're trying to
quote experts.
Yeah, they're trying to rationalize this whole idea of valuation. And I love how sometimes actually the Bloomberg hosts, some of them, I actually have to give them credit because they actually ask these experts, so what do you think about this valuation, though? It doesn't quite make sense. Does that justify the valuation? With a real skeptical look, because even they're thinking like, this doesn't make any damn sense why the stocks are flying, why Tesla doubled because they said they're splitting the stock.
Right, or Tesla's stock goes up because Elon Musk said something bizarre on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and I'm just like laughing as in, oh wow, let's watch them explain and justify the valuation. They're, oh well, we're thinking long term. I'm just making up all these excuses to rationalize reality when the real simple reality is the stock does not reflect the company. The stock is a Ponzi asset that is really being traded, non-dividend stocks, I must specify, is just something being traded between investors. Basically, how much cash do current GameStop holders have when the stock is at $330? Zero. Why? Because their money went to someone else who they bought it from. Okay.
Right. So I want to just explain one point here, which is that so in a Ponzi scheme, the whole idea is that there is no value. It's just whatever new people will put in, whatever you're able to con a new person into putting their money in, that money goes to people that are at the top of the Ponzi scheme. And your kind of the thesis of your book is that many of these stocks, or most of them, are no different. Like it's whatever the value, quote unquote, of the stock is just whatever you can dupe someone else to pay. It's not actually the value of a product or an industry or a production or.
Yeah. If you own GameStop a day ago when it was, let's say, I haven't been following that, but maybe it was like 150.
It went from like, I don't know, like a couple of dollars to like $300 or something.
Yeah. So, like a day ago, maybe it was like half of this. So let's say 150, right? And today it's like a $300. Well, guess what? Those investors who are holding those shares had $0 yesterday and they still have $0 today. They just have a number there that says 330 in their accounts. They still have $0. And the idea that they can simply cash out is ludicrous. The market cap formula itself is wrong. They're multiplying billions of shares or millions of shares with only the price for a few hundred stock shares that are being traded. And the market cap formula itself is fundamentally flawed. And the idea that they can simply cash out is ludicrous. If that were the case, we will never have stock crashes. What happens when a stock actually crashes? It's when you got a little bit more than, the normal liquidity, a normal amount of people trying to cash out. I mean, so it was zero yesterday in terms of how much money they had. It's zero today. The value that they see comes from the exchange of money from investors. It is a cerebral concept. The money, on the other hand, cash, real money, legal tender, that is something that is possessible. It is technically something completely different. So therefore, it gets Ponzi'd up to, let's say, $300 in a day. Great, right? Investors think they're sitting happy. They made all this money. Hey, you haven't made money until you cash out, bro. Now it could still keep flying, but hey, even if it goes to $1,000, it's still $0.
Well, right. And so it really is just a giant casino. But the difference between this and a casino is that they're playing with people's lives, because this impacts our society, it impacts industries, it impacts employees. People lose wealth, quote unquote, in their 401k or whatever, their mutual funds. And so people's lives are impacted while a tiny number of individuals, most of them very wealthy, just throw money around on a screen that doesn't impact them that much, but impacts real lives, right?
Absolutely. And I must also say, the idea that is going around that these are hedge funds, basically little guys on Reddit going against big hedge funds who are shorting GameStop. Even though this is all over Bloomberg and all over, based on the limited information I've seen, and it is limited because no one really has all the information, I question whether or not how many hedge funds are actually involved on the short side of GameStop, because the reason that news came out is because of Andrew Leff from Citron Research. He came out with something 2 days ago, but he's just one hedge fund who came out with some negative review about hedge funds or about GameStop a few days ago, at which point the thing started skyrocketing. So we don't actually know how many hedge funds are involved or even how many just retail investors who may have trusted Andrew Left's research that got screwed as well on this thing. So right now, it is indeed a casino. I will also say, though, it is far more dangerous to short a stock than to go long, because this is also a casino that the SEC actively supports, actively has rules for. What's interesting is if a stock crashes, and I've seen this many times, whether it's Tesla or IBM or whichever stock crashes like 10% or something in a day, the SEC will implement what they call an uptick rule, which basically says you cannot sell the stock short without actually somebody on the other side actively trying to liquidate their stock. Versus if GameStop or AMC flies up 100%, there's no downtick rule. Okay, you can just keep buying.
Right.
So the SEC actually promotes this. Has actually artificially has rules to prevent things from crashing, including the S&P. They have a circuit breakers, which we saw many times in March, which I didn't know existed until it actually happened. Well, apparently the S&P is only allowed to crash 7% before they actually stop trading, and then it's allowed to crash a few more percent, and then they stop trading again. Well, why are you stopping it, dude? You know, why don't you just let the natural market or whatever you call it take over, right?
Right. The whole idea, the invisible hand of the free market.
Exactly. It's not so free if you're stopping it. You know, it's quite artificial, actually.
So what does it mean that we are in a society where unemployment is through the roof? The numbers of like whatever 6-7% are basically completely false, because that's ignoring everyone who stopped looking for work, ignoring everyone who has a tiny part-time job but isn't really well employed. So it's ignoring so much. So you have massive unemployment. You have people waiting in hours in line at food banks. So many people, the number of businesses going bankrupt right now is just incredible. Something like 20% of restaurants are never opening again. It's just, it's getting crazy. And yet our stock market says things are fine. If you look at that, if you look at the stock market, the stocks are doing okay. What does that mean?
Well, it's completely disconnected from reality, obviously. And the reason it's disconnected is because it's a Ponzi process. It has nothing to do with the reality in the economy. And it's a terrible thing because, one, the gap is, of course, widening. But two, the question I really am thinking about is, at what point is it going to kind of stop? As in, at what point is the SEC going to actually, or government in general, because the SEC is just total full of shit right now. The fact that their idea of being regulators right now is being laughed at by a lot of people. But the question is right now, given especially these circumstances like GameStop, what are they going to do in terms of getting stocks or getting the financial system back to reality that actually has something to do with the economy? Because it absolutely makes no sense. Makes perfect sense based on my thesis. Okay, why it is that these businesses are going out of business and the S&Ps of these businesses are going skyrocketing all-time highs and stuff. But yeah, the stock market never really had a strong correlation with the economy before. However, it is the most visible thing, so people visibly see a lot of wealth, except for it is very isolated to the smaller top percentage.
Right. It's like 10% of Americans own 80% of all stock. Right?
Yeah, and then the rest of the society obviously no, but they don't have it. But I'll tell you what, there's a really easy way to bring them back down to reality. Elucidate the fact that $36 trillion of stock value equals $0 in real money.
Right. One of your favorite recommendations, one of my favorite recommendations from your book as to how to somewhat link the stock exchange to reality, the stock market's reality, was to not call those dollars. So not to say that, Amazon stock is worth this much dollars, and just to make up a word that is not dollars. So let's say padoodles. And if you have this many padoodles in Amazon, and they're not dollars until you sell it. Once you sell it, then you have American currency or whatever.
Oh yeah, they absolutely should. And that will bring things down to reality. Furthermore, I think that'll actually enhance our accounting system to be more accurate. Unfortunately, if we do that, a lot of pension plans are gonna pension funds are gonna collapse because it's so ingrained to this false accounting is so ingrained into our society. It's ridiculous. Like I said earlier, the market cap formula, which is, multiplies the number of shares based on the last traded price, that in itself is wrong. Finance is full of wrong ideas. The market cap formula came about from, I think, some guy named Edward something around the early 1900s. And it was just basically one bad formula that they just continuously used and used and used. And here we are today, okay? No one actually checked the logic of the formula. Should we apply this number, which comes from really only a handful of shares being traded, to billion shares, 1 million shares, okay? Which, by the way, obviously the investors can't liquidate all that and receive this money, but they think they can based on this market cap formula we have.
Right. So another question that you reminded me of earlier was that you talk about Tesla in your book, and since the writing of your book, Tesla stock has gone through the roof. Mm-hmm. Does that change anything as to your points on Tesla?
Oh, absolutely not. Again, it enhances what I said in a way that I did not predict or expect when I first published the book, because I didn't really expect the Ponzi scheme to be so obvious when it ascended without control. But no, it doesn't change it, because how much has Tesla paid the shareholders over the past 3 years since I published my book? Zero.
Right. One of your points in the book is that for example, Tesla, I don't know about this year, but at least when you wrote the book, they weren't actually reporting a profit. They were reporting that they would have a profit soon, but they didn't yet. And yet their stock is doing great. So how could a company without a profit be worth so many billions of dollars?
Yeah, they're still down $6.8 billion since they went public in 2010. And the great thing about stocks, which I have to give credit to Elon Musk and our beautiful financial system, is, hey, once you issue those stocks, you get that money, you don't have to pay your shareholders back ever, okay? Once in a while, you might be like an Amazon and buys back a few shares, but what you'll do right afterwards, like Amazon, is print some more stocks right after you buy them back, okay? So the point is, Tesla is still down $6.8 billion historically in terms of profit, in terms of losses since it went public. But obviously the stock has skyrocketed, but the only people paying out those earlier investors are the current shareholders who are buying their stock. Now, obviously, it'd be very, very bad idea to short Ponzi assets. And I've talked to a lot of people who love my book, love the logic, and keep telling me, I don't know why, one of my best friends keeps asking me this. He says, Ton, you got to ask some of your followers to, find some more, really, really bad companies to short. I was like, bad? You want me to, you want to try to short bad companies? Excuse me, no. You don't short Ponzi assets. You do not short bad companies. Why? Because that's logical, okay? That's logical. Ponzi assets don't follow logic, okay? That's the whole point. What I explained is the stock itself, the price itself, it is not the company. It does not reflect the value in the company. It comes from the exchange money between investors, and it is illogical. If you want to short a bad company, that is a logical thought. Don't do that, okay?
Doing that comes under the belief that whether this company is good matters in terms of its stock price.
Exactly. That's believing in the valuation idea. Dude, don't do that, okay? Don't do that, especially right now in this particular market. Within the past, I would say, month and a half, I noticed this is the biggest Ponzi market we've ever experienced, as in just companies being talked about on Reddit or social media will get pumped up into new heights.
Right.
Just last week, what was funny is just last week, I was even having a talk with somebody went to school with, because at the end of the day, I'm a statistician and we crunch data and stuff. And I was asking them to, we're thinking about building an engine to see if we can track essentially web scraping, track the certain stocks that are being talked about, whether or not there's a uptick in terms of how the price moves, volume moves, versus how many times it's being talked about. Now, this idea isn't new. This idea has actually been in play for many years in terms of web scraping, seeing how many times the companies mentioned. But what I noticed is it is far more relevant now than before. And this whole GameStop AMC thing shows, wow, it is. It's even more relevant. And it's a sad thing, because at the end of the day, is GameStop gonna be in business after this, right? Like,
right. It doesn't seem to matter to these people playing with these stocks. I saw, the other two that apparently this Reddit group are working on and having an impact on was AMC and the liquidation firm that owns the final Blockbuster. There is one Blockbuster store in Bend, Oregon, and this BB Liquidations is like a penny stock. And so these Redditors started jumping in on that one too. And apparently that's also shot up one Blockbuster.
Wow, that's, Well, Hertz last year, Hertz was going out of business and they were going to issue stocks as they were going out of business. And because Hertz, I think, did the same thing with last year when they were going out of business, they were issuing stocks. And Jay Clayton, who's the SEC chairman, was asked about what they think about essentially a bankrupt company issuing stocks, right? That have no way of paying it back, really. Wow. And what Jay Clayton simply said was ridiculous. He basically just didn't actually comment on this idea of a bankrupt company issuing stocks. All he said is, we have experts. They have experts too. We have a process. We are going to make sure they follow the process. And there is a process with experts who will reveal the process. That's all he said. It's like,
I think he was this close to going buzzword, buzzword, buzzword. That will matter, buzzword.
Yeah, for real. I mean, it is what it is in terms of this is the reality we live in. It is driving a bigger wedge between the poor and the rich, but also it is just making the financial system far more unstable, this type of thing. And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the rich and the poor, the billionaires in this country have gained $1.1 trillion since the pandemic began. So, these horrible times hit average Americans, and the richest of the rich are just living happy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, what people also need to understand is this is not how the stock market is supposed to work. This is not how stocks are supposed to work. They're supposed to be ownership instruments where you get a piece of the profit of the companies making money. It's not supposed to be some piece of paper any company prints out. It doesn't matter how much, whether the U.S. system has to have one of the loosest regulations with issuing stocks, which is, by the way, is also why a lot of international companies like to list in the U.S. Because here, we don't really have any regulations. A company doesn't have to make money. Like, they can literally lose money indefinitely. They don't have to they could print as many shares as they want and just basically avoid paying their investors indefinitely, even if they are profitable. What a great place to list. It's
the Wild West.
Yeah, and the thing is, this isn't the case in other countries. Now, I have heard, and I haven't done any deep research on, but I have heard, for example, in India, most stocks there pay dividends. The idea of a non-dividend stock is almost like, well, how are you going to make money then? And in China, they have regulations. I heard that you have to be profitable to list, because basically, if you're just an unprofitable company that's going to lose money indefinitely, why are you supposed to be getting money from out like the public market? Why are you supposed to get it from mom and pops and stuff? So our system itself is messed up, but it's also it's not logical, but it's also not how historically stocks are supposed to work. It's not how the stocks around the world actually also work.
So I just want to wrap up here by also asking you about kind of the censorship you've received. I know you've been banned from certain websites because they apparently can't handle the discussion you want to have about the stock market being a Ponzi scheme. What have you faced?
Well, obviously, I've been banned from Quora since day one. I've been shadow banned on Instagram here and there based on certain posts. And to be honest, I mean, I don't even know whether or not my real estate thing for Google is shadow banned also on YouTube, where apparently it doesn't pop up until even though I'm the one who posts about Google and real estate there. But the good news is over the past year, and especially since the S&P is so disconnected with fundamentals in the economy, more and more people are starting to see that stocks have nothing to do with the value of a company. Stocks are not ownership instruments, and there's far more relevance to the fact that the idea that it's a Ponzi scheme than anything else. So the good news is, I have been shadow banned, but at the same time, over the past 3 years, this idea I have and the thesis I presented is far more relevant now, and more people are talking about it now. I would say when I first published 3 years ago, maybe 1 out of 10 people would say, "Oh, you got something there." Now I would say it's 50-50 because of how crazy the stock valuations are and how recently, even on earnings reports, they go down. Like stocks will go down when a company reports good earnings. Stocks will go up when a company reports bad earnings. It's almost like, okay, well, how do I, as a company, what should I do to make my stock go up? Should I lose money? Maybe that will make the stock go up. So the whole idea of valuation is literally ridiculous, and more and more people are starting to see that right now. So.
Nice. So your website is theponzifactor.com, and I think you said along with the book, there's also a free PDF.
Yes, there is. They could check out the videos as well on the Ponzi Factors YouTube page, and the link is also underneath one of the videos, all the videos.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thanks for joining us and breaking it down.
Thank you, Lee.
Talk soon.
Yes.
So there was Tom Liu. If you have a chance, check out his book. It's also highly readable. It's not just it's not you don't have to be a PhD in economics to read his book. But yeah, it just goes to show how something that is kind of, I think his book is a great jumping off point to get to, is that this system of capitalism is hold on one second. It's basically a money laundering scheme. It takes money from average Americans and sucks it up to a tiny number of incredibly, ridiculously wealthy individuals, and while everyone else suffers. And each step of it is how to further exploit the average Americans, the average workers, the so-called essential workers, right? Now we found out, they're essential, but we are still going to fuck them over, despite the fact that they're so-called essential. So really what we need to see is essential workers fighting back, essential workers standing up, because this system is meant to exploit us. It's meant to break people down. And we're seeing that in a crisis. In a crisis, capitalism cannot defend us. It cannot help us. It's left to a couple of lawmakers that are owned by large corporations to try and put in a couple of Band-Aids, a couple of bandages to help your average American in the middle of the fucking pandemic, in the middle of a massive unemployment, in the middle of people waiting in line for food and fucking supplies, waiting in line for hours to try and get by. This is the so-called richest country in the world, and you can't take care of your goddamn citizens? No, because we have And I say unfettered capitalism because I want people to realize that we have the most unfettered capitalism, the most so-called free market where it can just exploit us as much as possible. And other countries have a lower degree of that. But really, it's just capitalism. You can put the restraints on it, like Elizabeth Warren's bullshit post. You can put some restraints on it, but you can't stop the monster. The monster will ultimately, because that's its goal, right? The whole point of capitalism is profit over all else. It is a tiny number of individuals owning the systems, owning the profits, exploiting your life, taking advantage of your life to enrich themselves. And that will never change, even if you put a couple of things around their ankles, even if you put a little leash on there, it's not going to change that. But people can fight back, and I realize these seem like small steps, but they are something, such as people fighting back against Amazon. So there's been a continued push during this pandemic for Amazon employees to unionize, and various areas of Amazon or warehouses have had more steps toward unionization. And so Amazon, of course, is fucking never going to let that happen. So they're doing everything they can to crush their workers, to stop them, to make sure they have as little power as possible. So Amazon, Jeff Bezos unveiled a great new website that he's put out to help his workers, to help them realize that they don't need a union, to help them realize that they should just keep being fucked over as much as possible. You little fella, don't try and fight back. Don't try and demand anything. You just go back and do your thing for $3 an hour and collapse on the warehouse floor like a good worker, like a good little worker. So Amazon created this website, which I'm going to show you, called Do It Without Dues. Of course, they have some. That's the other key to this kind of garbage is they'll show a person, usually a person of color, thumbs up. It's going great as you exploit me. Yay. And here's the Do It Without Dues. Yay. And it's Amazon's attempt to get their workers to not unionize, to not actually have any power. And so what I like, though, in terms of fighting back is this other group has now made another version of that website. They tweeted it out. I tweeted it out as well, but they tweeted it out with, "Here, we fixed it." And it's called Do It With Real Power. I just realized they used the same image of the same guy, the same worker with his thumbs up. So it's Do It With Real Power, and it tells people how important a union can be. Why join a union? Because Amazon has never had you covered. Amazon's leadership has kept you from high wages, healthcare, vision, dental benefits, as well as a safety committee, and an appeals process that you deserve. There's so much more you can do for your career and your family in solidarity with fellow workers. So those are all the reasons that unions are important. They give workers who are traditionally heavily exploited, they give them some power. They give them more power than they had. Unions can get more wages. And in fact, there was just a case in outside New York City where a union stood up and got $1 per hour more, which is a lot of money for many of them. And they were able to fight back. But without that power, without a group of people saying, listen, we are the many, you are the few, it's impossible. No worker gets anything, right? You would never, there is no individual worker who can go up to an Amazon or a fucking Tesla, or who's also been a union buster, or go down the line of big corporate America. There's no individual worker who can walk up and say, listen, I want to be paid more. Or listen, I've been here for fucking 37 hours straight. They won't even let me go to the bathroom. I had to shit in the Hallmark card aisle, which I don't think that's helping things. I would like to not be treated this way. And that worker will then be fired because they have no power. But beyond just so, I think that was great that they created their own website to combat Jeff Bezos's bullshit propaganda crap fest. But beyond just unions, the next step is towards what economist Richard Wolff calls democracy in the workplace. Workers should own their own workplace. The Amazon type structure, I mean, first of all, it shouldn't be that big to begin with, but if it were that big, it should be owned by the workers, and the workers should vote on how to change their lives. They should vote on whether they get dental benefits. They should vote on whether they want a higher wage per hour. The profits would go to the workers. So getting democracy in the workplace, and there are some small examples in the U.S. There are many co-op businesses, but they're not that large. And of course, they get a blackout from the mainstream media because the mainstream media is owned by corporate America, owned by those entities that want to crush unions, want to crush workers, want to not have the idea of democracy in the workplace become a little fucking meme that grows in people's heads like a thought seed. They don't want that. So they don't even mention it. They act like it doesn't exist. But anyway, if you Google Richard Wolff and democracy at work, he created an organization to further this, to promote this. And everyone should check that out. I'm going to do one more story here in a moment. But I just wanted to say that for anybody who did super chat donations, all the proceeds are going to mutual aid, help people get food and supplies in these incredibly difficult times. I'll be giving it to a variety of cities. And what else? Please share this. Please click the thumbs up. Also, I do these every single weekday, except sometimes. And they're at leecamp.com. So if you miss one, if you're not told about one, if you don't get the alert, because, oh yeah, that was the name, Hunts Point. John just mentioned that oh, that's right. Yeah, actually, okay, John is a good point. The Hunts Point workers went on strike. They did get a lot of what they wanted. They didn't get a full $1 per hour. They got something that's going to go, it's between 40 cents and 62 cents for now, but they also got other things they wanted. So the workers agreed to it. So obviously they got a lot of what they wanted, or they wouldn't have agreed to it. But anyway, that is the Hunts Point example is an example of a win for workers for the most part. And it wouldn't have happened without them working together to do that. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, if you don't get the alert, go to leecamp.com. I put these up there almost every single day. And yeah, I'm going to do one more story here. This has to do with, again, people power, people getting together and demanding change, because a lot of people ask me, what can we do? How can we stand up? How can we stop things? How can we make a difference? And this one has to do with the military-industrial complex. And, you know, it's not an easy thing to stop or slow down even anything that the military-industrial complex does with our massive weapons sales by weapons contractors around the world, weapons that are used to kill and maim and destroy, that rain down on innocent civilians on an endless basis. And then those war criminals are elected to office, and we celebrate. Oh, my goodness, isn't this great? Joe Biden or Donald Trump became president. Yay, they can bomb innocent children as much as they were before. They can, it's a bomb every 12 minutes roughly that we're dropping from the United States. And that's not even counting the bombs raining down from the people we give weapons to, such as Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, et cetera, Israel, et cetera, et cetera. And some people were talking about this article it's not just an article. It's a fact that Joe Biden and his administration have put a freeze on arms sales to Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. Wow, that's great to hear. Who knew Joe Biden was going to be a peaceful president? Mr. Peace over there. Wow. But the truth is that it's not uncommon at all for a new administration to put a freeze on weapons sales while they re-examine the contracts and then restart them. So chances are Biden is not going to really change the weapons contracts with Saudi Arabia or UAE. And so for those liberals out there celebrating that this somehow means anything, stop that. You fucking stop that. No. Don't even begin to celebrate. If I see you put on a party hat, I swear to fucking God, slap that thing off your face. Do not celebrate. They haven't stopped the weapons sales. They put a freeze on them so they can review the contracts that Trump signed, because Trump doesn't read anything. It could say in there that, every pig across the United States has to have Joe Biden's likeness painted on their face. And that could be in the contract. And they, of course, go and cross that out and be like, oh, Trump. So anyway, the idea that they're freezing weapons is likely horseshit. Thank you, Lorna, for the donation that will go to mutual aid. Very much appreciated. But I want to show this. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday. 2 days ago, was the day of solidarity with Yemen. Yemen, as many of you know, has just been destroyed by a U.S.-backed assault by Saudi Arabia Not only do we sell Saudi Arabia the weapons that they use on Yemen, I mean, they've created basically a genocide there, one of the worst famines this world has seen in many decades. But not only do we sell weapons, but they in many cases, our military industrial complex is helping them with their targeting, like helping them figure out who and how to kill people in Yemen and to cause the most damage in Yemen. And that's what the United States is doing to help the assault, facilitate the assault, the destruction, the genocide in Yemen. And so there was a day of solidarity with Yemen 2 days ago. And here is, let's see. This is David Swanson with the World Beyond War, I believe is the name of the organization. And here's his article. Worldbeyondwar.org is the website. How we blocked weapons trucks in Canada. How you can do the same. On January 25th, Global Day of Action to End the War on Yemen, one of the most dramatic actions that moved the demand for peace into the most media stories was taken by members of World Beyond War and our allies, including Labor Against the Arms Trade in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We blocked trucks outside Paddock Transportation International. Paddock ships armored vehicles to Saudi Arabia for the Saudi-led war on Yemen, or at least it tries to. Paddock's trucks were delayed and their office flooded with calls. A great deal of attention was brought to the issue. For the first time, a Liberal member of Parliament broke with the government's position and publicly supported our demands. And here's a little montage of all the publicity they got from various outlets. And so, as you can see, this effort it achieved twofold. Some things, it obviously slowed down weapons deliveries for at least a bit. And then on top of that, it got a lot of media coverage. If you look at most of these outlets, they are not U.S. mainstream outlets. In fact, I don't think I see any U.S. mainstream outlets, but they are important outlets because U.S. mainstream outlets would not cover the fact that protesters stopped weapons from getting to their destination. But you see, it's Al Jazeera, it's CBC, so at least that's a Canadian mainstream media. Democracy Now!, Common Dreams. So it did get a fair amount of media coverage for something like this. And that makes people talk about it. It makes people think about it. It makes people think about the fact that we are delivering weapons of war to countries so that they can bomb and kill people. I mean, it's just fucking horrific that this even has to happen. But for those of you wondering how just a few citizens can have some impact, that is some impact, and that is where you should see hope and growth. And obviously, if there were 100,000 people willing to go and stop these trucks, you could stop them for days, weeks. You could have a far greater impact. But this shows that I don't know how many people were there. Let's say 20, 50, whatever it was. They succeeded in getting a lot of media coverage and slowing this down and showing solidarity with Yemen. So good for them. Very impressive. That's another good resource for you. And if you're interested in military industrial complex, it's called World Beyond War. Is it the world or just world? So just worldbeyondwar.org. And it's by David Swanson, who I've had on the show before. I've worked with before. Great guy, great author, and a tenacious, endless fighter for ending war around the world. But again, if you want to dig in a little deeper, why do we have endless war? Because we have a system that needs profit over all else. It will always seek profit. And how does it get that endless profit? Well, you got to exploit other nations. Not only is there profit in the selling of these weapons of war to their ultimate owners, but these weapons contractors make a tremendous profit from our. We pay them with our U.S. government pays these weapons contractors create these weapons that are then given to the U.S. military or sold to other countries. And when peace is threatened with a country, Donald Trump was a horrific, disgusting, racist human being, but he also did at one point try and create peace with North Korea. And when he did that, the stocks of weapons contractors, back to the stock market again, back to that old Ponzi scheme, the stocks of the contractors sank, lost billions of dollars the moment Donald Trump started working to create peace with North Korea. And not only does that mean that you have the politicians that own the weapons contractors putting pressure on Trump, but that puts a pressure on society. There is pressure on our government, on our society to get those stocks back up. And we talked about, it's part of the scheme that a lot of people have their retirement in these mutual funds and stuff, right? So they want the weapons contractors stock to go up too. You have average Americans going, please, weapons contractors stock, please go up. Please have more war. Please. What a great scam to make people invested, quote unquote, in these stocks of these killers, of these war profiteers. War profiteering used to be illegal. Now it's how our system works. Our system is basically war profiteer based. Anyway, if you want to dig deeper, the reason we have the reason we're supporting this genocide in Yemen and sell these weapons to Saudi Arabia is because there's a tremendous profit in it. It's power, it's profit. And that comes back to our capitalist system. But you won't hear that on the mainstream media. God forbid they ever actually analyze the world we live in. So, I believe every decision that's made should be first factored through a lens of, is it sustainable? Blowing up countries? Not sustainable. Not really. Because you know what? You blow up countries, then you got to rebuild countries. And not sustainable. Terrible for the environment to blow up countries. And then another lens of, is it moral? And of course, fuck no, it's not. Not even close. Okay, I'm going to wrap up here in a minute, but as I said, all the donations will go to mutual aids around the country. I suppose I should call it mutual aid organizations. You say mutual aids, that sounds bad. It sounds like, this organization runs around, gives everybody HIV. I've been helping them out, helping them get up off the ground to run around the country, giving people HIV. It's, just a little hobby of mine. No, mutual aid organizations around the country. So thank you for the donations. And I will be back likely tomorrow because I do these every single weekday, except sometimes. And please share, please let people know. By the way, my episode of Government Secrets with Graham Elwood, we're doing a 3-part series on the JFK assassination. So if you want to learn more about what really happened to JFK, then just look up the podcast. Government Secrets is the name of it. It's free on all your podcast platforms. It's also, you can watch it on YouTube as well. But we tried to put up the video, and we have met with all kinds of resistance. They put a giant warning label under it, basically saying, here are the CIA talking points. It also froze when we put it up, so that the video froze and we had to re-upload. And of course, that loses a bunch of views. And so now it's been re-uploaded. I think it's working. So if you go to leecamp.com, you can watch that episode on the JFK assassination and hopefully watch a bunch more of my podcast, Government Secrets. But yeah, everything's up there, redacted tonight, everything else. Sorry. Thank you guys, and keep fighting. See you tomorrow.